Hooray. We are... Yes, we are live. Just had to double check and make sure. Hello, you guys. Hello, hello. Good morning, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you might be. Happy Wednesday. Happy to have you here, Go Girl. What is up, John? Hello. Hey, guys. Hello, hello, hello. Thank you so much again for joining for another Q&A. Just checking settings really quick. I think we're good. Everybody can hear me okay, right? Everybody can hear me and see me. There's no glitchiness or need a haircut. No glitchiness going on. Good deal. Awesome. I'm going to give it another 30 seconds or so, and we'll go ahead and start diving into the questions and answers. Now, this is one of the highlights of my week. I absolutely love being here with you guys. I love just being able to communicate and hopefully shed some light on, and just thank you for being here. Just thank you for being here. Tracy, welcome. Hello. Thank you for coming in. All right. Very cool. So if you guys see, I still have the kitten running around down here somewhere. So he might pop up behind me. He might pop up on screen. Don't mind him. The place is kitten proof. We're good. Lucy. Hello. Hello, Lucy. Hello, Miss FM. Hello, Priscilla. Charlie, Ada, Angie, KM, Alex, Lau. You guys, thank you so much. Sincerely. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. Let's go ahead and jump on in. Let's do that. Really quick before I do, before we go ahead and get started, I want to really quick make some plugs, make some announcements. So as if you've been watching my live Q&As each week, you'll know that I've got a couple things going on. I've still got my live courses and workshops on sale, 50% off through the end of the month, because October is my favorite month, and I figured, why not? I've also got group coaching coming up. My group coaching program starts on the 31st of October. Now, I've just started getting back to people who have already submitted applications last weekend. So if I have not reached you yet, do not worry, I am going to. But applications are still being accepted. If you are interested in learning more, I've got a whole bunch of information about that program down in the description box. Definitely check it out. It's 12 weeks, and it is packed with everything that you could possibly need to know about how this works and how to apply it. Also working on a bunch of testimonials coming soon. All that said, enough of that noise. Let's go ahead and get started with some questions. I'm going to try to get to as many as I can. If I miss you, if I don't see it, or I do not get to you, I apologize in advance. I'm doing the best that I can. Let's see. Take a drink real quick. He's so cute. He is so cute. All right. Thank you, Alex. KM has a really good question. What does it mean if you've successfully impressed the subconscious mind? I've been consistent and strong mental diet, but how do you know that you're going to get whatever you desire? Because I already got it. So what does it mean if you've successfully impressed your subconscious mind? Essentially what that means, that's how we manifest. So subconscious impressions are whatever the beliefs, whatever the assumptions created from the conscious mind that gets accepted to the subconscious. And that is what ultimately moves you or projects. It looks like it's projecting everything out into the 3D. It becomes your external reality. I've been consistent with a strong mental diet, but how do you know that you've impressed your subconscious mind? So you'll know you've impressed, you'll know that that seed is planted, so to speak, because of how you're feeling. Like you'll notice a change in behavior, you'll notice a change in how you feel. You'll just notice all around that you're thinking and feeling more from that state. And if you hear cats in the background, don't worry. But from internal reflection, you'll know there is a difference. You'll notice a difference in how you're thinking, overall how you're feeling. That's not to say that we never have moments where we get stressed or angry, but there is a noticeable difference when you have, in fact, successfully impressed the subconscious mind with that desired outcome. You start to think from that new state, from that premise. So it's a lot less, where is it? Am I doing this right? And more of a feeling of ease. Like you're relaxed about it. You're not worked up about it because you know that it's done. So I hope that answers that question. How do we know that we've impressed the subconscious mind? You will know. You will know because of the way that you're feeling, the way that you're thinking, and ultimately then how everything starts showing up around you. Oh, do I got a visitor? Somebody wants to pop in and say hi really quick, you guys. Hi. Look at how big he's getting. Look at this monster. He's getting huge. He's 2 whole pounds. Charlie has a really good question. How do we manifest something we have a lot of resistance towards because it is something dire, like health related or something of that sort? Those are really hard because they are so important. So how to manifest something when it feels like there's a lot of resistance towards it because of the importance that we're putting on it, especially things that come with health reasons. And of course, naturally, health is extremely important to us. So naturally, it's going to feel like there's a lot of pressure to get this right. And it's that resistance is more stemming from a place of pressure to, like, there's so much importance. We're putting this thing so high up there because a lot is at stake here, right? It feels like a lot is being put on this thing to happen. Like, we need this thing to happen, or it could be the consequences can be very significant if it doesn't. But how do we overcome that? How do we change that? How do we, get around that resistance? Well, number one, what we don't want to do, and this goes for anything, if we're feeling a lot of resistance for whatever reason, if perhaps your mind is just not wanting to focus, your thoughts are racing, you're feeling a lot of pushback, so to speak, the last thing we want to do is in that moment to try to force ourselves through it. So if you're feeling a lot of pushback or just like your mind is not cooperating with what you're doing in that moment, you don't want to try to fight it. You don't want to try to just like grit your teeth and pull through it, because the subconscious mind is much stronger than the conscious willpower. So in those moments, it feels like we need to like push back harder, but we actually need to do the opposite. And that's just let go in that moment. Like, okay, you know what? I'm not going to try to force this. I'm not going to try to just bulldoze through this resistance. In those moments, instead, take your focus and try to put it on anything else. Find your favorite book, open up your favorite book, watch something, go for a walk, whatever it is that we can do to, in that moment, just take our attention away from what it is that we don't want, or that resistance, whatever's fighting us. So when you are feeling more relaxed, you are feeling more of maybe even just a neutral state, you want to first practice just getting deeper in that relaxation. Meditation is such an incredible tool for this practice, and I cannot stress that enough. If you're struggling with resistance, it's likely because you are trying to push too hard. Instead, we got to do the opposite. We got to relax. So through meditation, through focused meditation and things like that, you're going to have a much easier time, because it takes away a lot of that effort, that conscious effort. So I would practice getting, into a deeper and more relaxed state, and trying to revisit that wish fulfilled in that more relaxed state. So when you have resistance, do not try to plow through it. It is stronger than your conscious mind. Instead, we want to relax. We want to relax the mind, not try to make it go harder. I hope that makes sense. Ada has a question, and I'm sorry I missed your question in the last live. Can you please explain what it means when I see manifestations in 3D, but not in my personal experience? So if I understand correctly, what does it mean if you see something that you desire show up, but it's not for you, it's not in your personal experience, like you're seeing it for somebody else, if I'm gathering that correctly? And do correct me if I'm wrong. But what do we do if something comes into our awareness, into the 3D, but it's not in our experience? Maybe it's for somebody else. In that case, we revise. So that happens for whatever reason. There could be a number of factors here. For some, it could be that there's a lot of disbelief around the fact that you could actually obtain this thing. It could be that, daydreaming in the third person, or thinking of that desire. That's actually a really common way for things to show up in your 3D, but not for you. Thinking of what you want as though you're still separate from it is, probably one of the biggest ways in which that tends to happen. Also because we may not think or feel it's possible for us, or there may be feelings of unworth, there may be feelings like this is not possible for me, this isn't doable for me, anything of the sort. The one thing you're always going to want to do when you're noticing things like these is paying close attention to your mental diet, because your mental diet, your inner conversations, your inner dialogues, and the moods and the feelings that you have are going to tell you a lot of what we're doing, and ultimately why things are reflecting the way that they are. So I would, pay close attention and see if there was anything that you were doing prior to noticing these manifestations showing up in the 3D, but not for you. What were you entertaining? Was there, questions about is this possible for me? Is this really doable for me? I can't see myself with that thing. I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. But if you see something show up that you want, but it's showing up for somebody else, or showing up not for you, we want to start observing as to what we're entertaining, but then also, of course, revise it. Erase it. Imagine that it did show up for you. Imagine that it is, in fact, yours and not for somebody else. And that's the beauty of that tool, because we can use it as the eraser for anything that is showing up that's unwanted, or showing up in a way that's not quite accurate. So I hope all that made sense. But if I did misunderstand your question, do let me know. Kitaki has a question, a really good one. Hi, Missy. I've done a lot of your workshops and I loved them. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed them. In Sats, I don't feel the moment of fulfillment. In Sats, sometimes my SP Sat scene feels empty. Other times it feels great. Do I need to change it? So when it comes to doing Sats, sometimes it doesn't feel like you get to that moment of fulfillment. It doesn't feel, sometimes it feels empty, right? If I'm gathering this correctly. Do you need to change it? So if you do not feel that feeling of fulfillment in Sats, do we need to change the scene? Short answer is no. That can happen for a number of reasons. You know, it could be that in practice also, it does take practice. Sats are not something that we're typically used to. We're not used to doing them. So I know for me and for a lot of people that I've talked to, when we first start doing them, it's not uncommon to not feel anything. Like we can maybe see it, we can, you know, hear it or have our senses involved, but feeling may not be there at first. And that's everything that I've gathered points to that is normal. That is normal. What we want to do is practice with that scene. As long as it's a scene that implies what you desire, as long as it's a scene that implies you living from the end, you're good to go. You're good to go. And I mean, naturally, this should be something that you want to resonate with, of course, but it's not uncommon to have it feel quote unquote empty at first. With practice, it does we begin to feel it, as far as like we feel like we're really there. It feels like this is really happening. Subconsciously, we can't tell the difference between imagination and the 3D. So we're practicing getting the hang of making it as lifelike as possible so that to the subconscious mind, it feels like this is really happening. And at first, or at times, you might not get there, and that's fine. If you, at other times, you are noticing that feeling, you're good to go. Once you do successfully feel it, that seed is planted. Hello, Kim. How can I overcome the fear I feel every time I'm trying to do the inner self work? That's a really good question. How to overcome the fear I feel every time I am trying to do the inner self work? Well, first I want to ask, what kind of fear? Or I guess what is the fear stemming from? Is it fear of failure? Is it fear of the unknown? Is it both? Because there could be a number of things going on there. And so it helps to have an idea of like where that fear is stemming from. And sometimes we may not know right away, but that's where we do the inquiry. That's where we do the internal asking and feeling around. And if there's fear coming up, if there's emotion coming up and we can't pinpoint it, really just where could that be stemming from? And it will come to you. That answer will come to you. But if it's fear of failure, anything of that sort, I mean, that is really common. How to overcome it, that is something that I guess no, first we really want to see where it's stemming from. To get a clear answer on how to overcome that or how to deal with that, first see where it is stemming from. If it is something such as the fear of failure or fear of, messing up your manifestation somehow, then we need to change perspective. We need to not try to look at it like I need to get this right or I'm going to be miserable. Like we don't want to put our whole well-being on this. If it feels like we're doing that, then of course there's going to feel like there's a lot of fear coming up. Instead, we're doing this for us because we want to feel better. Because we want to feel better. And if we change that approach, if we change how we're looking at this, that alone can help alleviate some of that fear of failing. of like, I have to get this right, or I'm not going to see what I want come to pass. If we change how we're looking at that, that will help alleviate a lot of it. So I hope that makes sense. But if it's fear stemming from somewhere else, let me know. Good morning, Darlene. Burku has a really good question. Also, hi, it's good to see you. How can we manifest a soulmate without knowing that person? When I manifest, I always imagine a scene, but not knowing the face of the soulmate is too difficult to imagine. What should I do? So when it comes to manifesting somebody that you haven't met yet, right? Doing an imaginal act without seeing that face, it could certainly feel challenging. Absolutely. What I would recommend, maybe instead, if it feels like there's not enough there to work with, if it feels like it's too challenging, I would instead just get very clear on what that relationship looks like. Not so much on the person themselves, but the character aspects of them and of the two of you together. Like, what do you want him to look like? What do you want him to act like? What do you want, his interests to be? Get descriptive of that person, and then get descriptive of what you are looking for in a relationship. Trust, mutual affection, somebody who's strong, somebody who's funny, somebody who's charismatic, somebody who's a good listener. Get very clear on that. We can sometimes get really caught up in those technical details. And it's, again, if we've never met the person, if it's a brand new person that we're trying to manifest, of course, it's going to seem difficult if we don't know what that face looks like yet. So I would take a different approach. I would instead start getting very clear on what that relationship looks like, how they're showing up for you. And then use that in imagination, whether that's through affirmations, whether that is through visualization, that you're having a conversation with friends and family and telling them about this new person and how amazing they are and how they checked all these boxes. I hope that makes sense, but I would just, if you can't get clear on that face because you haven't met this person yet, get clear on what that relationship looks like instead. That is a really good question, though. Sweet Pea asks, in terms of negative thoughts manifesting and old thoughts purging or manifesting out, what is the truth of that? So in terms of negative thoughts that manifest and old thoughts purging or manifesting out, what is the truth of that? So when it comes to negative thoughts, this is something that can strike fear in us every time. If we notice that we're having negative thinking, if we catch ourselves entertaining thoughts that we don't want, the first thing that we typically do after finding out about this is we freak out thinking that, oh crap, I just had a bad thought. Now it's going to manifest. And that's not necessarily true. It's not necessarily true. Also, you're not at the mercy of your thoughts ever. You're not at the mercy of anything ever. So rest assured. It's the thoughts that strike feeling, that there's the thoughts that come with feeling or reaction that manifest. So not every single thought that we have is going to come to pass. It's the ones that do strike feeling in us that we react to. And even if we do react to negative thoughts, again, that is what revision is for. You can flat out reject the notion. So say I catch myself, I've been, having these fearful thoughts running through my head for the past hour, and I was completely unaware that I was doing this. As soon as I catch myself doing it, I say, nope, I don't accept that. I don't accept any of that. That's all garbage. I reject it. And drop it. And drop it. But we want to practice stepping back into our power, because for the longest time we've been giving our power to these things that are not really us, like our thoughts or the outside, especially the outside world. None of that has power over you. Not at all. So, and as far as the purge goes, I did actually make a video talking about that recently. Not the last one that I released, the one before, where I'm talking about ego backlash, and I'm talking about, why it seems like these things come out of nowhere. Like we're doing really well, we feel like we're making progress, and then something happens and we go from great to terrible for whatever reason. Check out that video that I made. It's the second one back. I forget the title of it, but yeah, that goes into much more detail. But bottom line, do not fret too much on your negative thoughts. Even if they do strike a chord, even if we do react to them, this is why we have revision. This is why, like, as the creator, we do not have to accept that those bad thoughts are going to manifest because we had a reaction. We don't have to do that. Angie, I know you said you don't believe in astrology/tarot, but do you think people with certain birth charts are able to manifest faster? Yes, of course, everyone can manifest. No, the birth chart has nothing to do with your ability to manifest. No. And don't get me wrong, I love astrology. I think it's fascinating. Tarot cards, I was a tarot reader for years. So I got no beef with that. I got no beef with them. However, it's not the stars that are going to dictate how well you can manifest. No, that's not a thing. Lizzie, is there another group coaching opportunity after this one? I can't make it currently, but would love to next time if there's another one coming up. Absolutely. So yeah, the group coaching is going to be, it opens up every 3 months. So if for whatever reason you can't make this one, that's coming up October 31st, there will be another one coming out in 3 months' time. So 12-week program. And I'll start announcing a month before that, hey, we're about to get started again. If you want to join, sign up. But yeah, so be on the lookout for that. So I guess the January 31st then would be the the next time. But yeah, I'll also be announcing it. I'll be making announcements about that as we get closer to that time. Sorry, I lost my spot. Sorry, guys. I find myself making progress in that I'm not reacting like I used to with my SP, but I don't know whether I need to plan for my negative thoughts I had to manifest, or was I able to catch them? So whether to plan for the negative thoughts manifesting, or if you were able to catch them in time. So we do not need to plan on what to do if we have negative thoughts. Actually, by entertaining that, we are manifesting that. by giving attention to, I need to make this plan in case something goes wrong. What are we giving attention to? If you notice a negative thought and you have a reaction to it, catch it, revise it, reject it. We do not have to accept that, because this is something that I had a reaction to, that it is going to happen now, and I'm powerless to change that. That's never a thing. We are never, ever powerless to change what is going to happen. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. Oh, I'm sorry, Angie. I didn't see that yours was a 2-part, and this is actually a really important one. So Angie says, the first part was about astrology charts. I would like to get a tarot reading just to see if I am in a good place mentally, to see if the cards match my actual state. I'm so confident one day and then stop the next day. Does this slow down the manifestation process? So I noticed that this is a trend that's been picking up, using tarot cards to check the state of consciousness that we're occupying, or to see if the cards are matching up with the state that we're occupying. So the only thing that I'm gonna advise is, if you want to know the state that you're embodying, if you are trying to see where you are in consciousness, we do so by observation. Just note the thoughts, the feelings that you're having in your day-to-day. Note how people are showing up. All of this out here, outside of you, it's feedback telling you the state of consciousness you're occupying. Same thing within here. Same thing internally. So you can find what state you've been occupying. You can find out if you're in your ideal state or not by self-observation. We don't need the help of tarot cards. And I understand. I'm not saying it's wrong to do that, and don't do that. But what I see happen sometimes, if we're not careful, is if the cards show us something that is not ideal, then maybe we were in a good state a moment ago, but since we got that terrible reading and the cards showed all these bad things, now I'm in a terrible state. We don't want to get in the habit of looking to things outside of us to show us where we are. We're not going to find the answers outside of us. It's all internal. It's all internal. Now, if this is something that's strictly a hobby and you do not take it seriously, you're not taking it to heart of like, oh God, I've been in this terrible state this whole time because the card said so, have fun with it. I'm not here to tell you what to do, but it's something that I'm seeing more and more of, and I want to make sure that, to get it out there, that we don't need to resort to tarot cards or anything external to see the state that we are occupying, to identify which state that we are occupying. That's going to show itself through your thinking, your moods, how you're feeling, and all of that. Oh, frog in my throat. One sec, guys. Why does manifestation take a while? Good question, Yvonne. I like this one. Why does manifestation take a while? I guess because people go back and forth or somehow think it will take long. Why 6 months for an SB? Why not 3 or 4 weeks? I mean, fair point. I mean, the simple answer is it doesn't have to take a while. Um, it typically does because double-mindedness, and a lot of the fears and doubts and the old story. We have a tendency to go off of what's happened in the past and use that as sort of a gauge as to what's going to happen in the future. So if things were not ideal, if things maybe ended badly, or they said something to you that was very hurtful, that's going to be something that we fear is going to happen again. Or, oh, because they said they didn't want to talk to me anymore, they said they didn't love me anymore, that means that I have to do all these things to get his love back or get her love back. We're really good at conditioning our desires. But it's, for the most, excuse me, more often than not, it's double-mindedness. And I actually just made a video talking about what's happening with time and when we are manifesting. So we're moving into that. As soon as you feel that feeling of the wish fulfilled, you're in that state. Like, you are in that reality. It is instant. What happens, though, is before we're able to even get to our bridge of incidents, we move back through fears, through doubts, and all of that. We wind up reverting back to another state, an old state, maybe our old dominant state. And then it becomes this sort of this back and forth game, which to us seems like a time lag, but really it's because we're moving back and forth between the state of the wish fulfilled and our old state that is not wanted, the old shitty state that we don't want. But it doesn't have to take long, no. But we also, it might feel hard to try to suspend your disbelief and think that, oh, I can manifest them back in 4 minutes. Like, we also have to check our expectations of what resonates with us and what feels, natural or completely abnormal. That will make a difference too. Alex is a really good question. How can I go about manifesting a job? I know the salary and the benefits that I want. I also know I want it to be remote, but I don't know what to do in SATs because I don't know what it would look like. And that's fair. So if you don't know what that job is, you just have an idea, like, I want to make this amount of money, I want to work from home, and I want benefits. And if that's as far as you got, you can work with that. But instead of trying to maybe visualize yourself doing the job, I would recommend imagining a conversation with a friend or family member, a loved one, telling them that you got this amazing job, you get to work from home, you got these really kick-ass benefits, and things like that. Like, I make an amazing salary, that this is what I wanted and I got it. And then you can hear the other person that you're talking to congratulate you for said job. And then, play it out like that, because that is typically something that would happen after thinking from the end, right? That would be a conversation that you would have with somebody once you got the job. So imagine that. Maybe try going that route instead of trying to see yourself at some makeshift job if you don't know what that is. That would help. Because to be clear, if you are open to whatever comes along, as long as those criteria are met, then you don't have to know like what that role is or what it looks like. Yeah, I would do an imaginal conversation, a mental conversation, and hear them congratulate you for getting the job. What if I have zero resistance or negative thoughts and barely thinking about my desire, but still no movement for a couple of years? Maybe make some adjustments to it. Any advice? So if you have zero resistance, if you have no negative thoughts, and this, if your desire is barely even crossing your mind and you're not seeing any movement still, I would start to then pay close attention to my internal dialogue. I would pay close attention to, what thoughts and feelings come up in my day to day, and especially anything relating to that desire. And what is the first thing that comes up for you when you do think about your desire? When the thought does cross your mind, what is the very first initial reaction? Because that initial reaction will tell you, where you are in consciousness in relation to that, whatever that it might be. Now, if it's still all good, if you don't have any, if there's nothing there, I would just pay close attention to day to day, maybe go in a little bit more with your mental diet and really pay close attention to what is the internal dialogues. Because here's the thing, we're operating most of the time on autopilot. Well over half of the time that we're up and walking around, we're on autopilot. So we're not even aware most of the time what thoughts and what we're going, like, we're not conscious of what we're doing most of the time, is what that means. So there's a lot of times where we may think that we're doing really great. We may think that, I don't understand. I have no negative thoughts. I don't have anything about this. But upon closer observation, that may not be the case. Now, I'm not saying that it isn't, but I would recommend being, carefully observing for the next week or so and see what comes up for you. Because for me personally, when I started to pay very close attention to what I was doing and what I was saying, it shocked me. It genuinely shocked the hell out of me, because I thought that I was doing way better than I really was. And that's not to say that that's going to be the case for you, but we're unconscious most of the time. We're on autopilot most of the time. So I would see what comes up and kind of go from there. How detailed does your visualization have to be? Say I want to manifest $100. I can't picture every detail on the dollar bill because it's so elaborate. How do I make sure that I visualize properly? Really good question. So how vivid do our visualizations need to be? Like, does it need to be picture perfect replica? No. No. I mean, as long as you have the idea, like, what it is, like in your mind, you know that you're looking at $100 bill, even if you can't see all the intricacies and all the details of it, that's fine. That's fine. We just need the outline in our mind for it to, quote unquote, work. As you practice, it does get more and more descriptive. It does get to a place where you do become more, engaged with the imaginal acts. You start seeing in more detail. You start hearing clearer. You start being able to smell things. It really does become like all of the tones of reality. But initially, for a lot of people, I'd argue most people, it's not going to start out that way. Because we haven't been using our imagination in this manner. Think of it like a muscle. If you haven't exercised a muscle for a very long time, it's it's not going to be very strong. Well, the same is with your imagination. So yeah, it doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be this super lifelike carbon copy. As long as you know in your mind what you're looking at and what's going on, like that's fine. But the more that you practice, you'll find that your senses do get sharper, and it will get more descriptive, and it will get more lifelike. I've said it before multiple times, but when I first started practicing visualizing, I was terrible. I could not see anything in my mind's eye to save my life. Now, if I close my eyes, I could have my imagination look just like this room as far as the description. So with practice, and anyone can do this. I'm not the only one who can do this. Everyone can do this. With practice, you can too. But I wouldn't stress about it. In the meantime, it's there to have fun with it and enjoy it. As long as you have an outline of what that is, you're good to go. Is it better to listen to affirmations overnight on a loop in my own voice, or does subliminals work better? Good question. So, does it help to listen to night affirmations, and is it helpful to have it in our own voice? From everything that I've experienced and people that I've talked to, yeah. We're going to connect right away if it's our own voice. Like, we know the sound of our own voice. That's not going to feel foreign to us. I know for myself, I was not able to resonate as much with affirmations that were in someone else's voice. Sometimes now there was a couple cases where that wasn't true, but I'm saying for the most part. But I would absolutely play around with that. Record some of your affirmations on a tape. I know they've got a ton of apps for that now, and put it on a loop. See how it does for you, because everybody's experience is going to be different. But a lot of people have had success with this. So yeah. And as far as that versus subliminals, I mean, they're the same thing. One's just quieter. So they're about the same. Missy, I'm in a rut with manifesting my SP. You mentioned not to focus on time. That is an illusion, but I'm not getting younger and on the verge or exiting my 50s. I have faith, but not patience. I feel that one. And Kim, that's, even knowing and understanding how time works, we may know it's an illusion, but it feels very real, right? I made a video about that point the other day. Like, just because something is an illusion doesn't mean it doesn't affect us, because it still feels very real to us. And so I get it. I totally get it. And when it comes to SPs, well, the one thing that would always take me out of that cycle of where is it, hurry up already, because I was the queen of impatience myself. I was terrible with patience. And a lot of people struggle with the whole patience aspect. Check out the video that I made specifically talking about patience. I just came out with it a few days ago. Not a few days ago, it was a few videos back. But if we're struggling with patience, if it doesn't feel like, we're like, where is it? Hurry up, where is it? We need to pause for a minute and ask ourselves, I mean, first off, is that helping us any? No. Second off, when it comes to why it's not here yet, and I don't know for your specific situation if it's that you're constantly becoming aware that they're not reaching out, but if that's the case, it's because we're reminding ourselves constantly that it's not here. And when we remind ourselves constantly that it's not here, what reaction are we feeding into? What are we giving our attention into? What I had to do at points and at times was change my perspective. I needed to take a step back and stop making this about SP. Because for me, and I'm only speaking for me right now, but for me, I was so at a point at times, I was so just obsessed with getting him back. Like, I could not even let myself think about much else. And not only was that completely unproductive, like nowhere near productive for me. Unproductive, is that even a word? Not only was that not helping, but it was making me feel terrible in general. And then I noticed things starting to go a little sideways in other areas. So we don't want to start this ripple effect. So if sometimes we need to just change perspective and take a step back and look at the bigger picture. We're doing this for us. Yes, SPs, money, whatever it is that we desire, those are aspects. Yes. And they're important aspects. But at the end of the day, this is our own spiritual growth. This is our own spiritual development. And we need to really kind of remind ourselves what we're ultimately doing this for. It's to be for us, not for them. Because we want to focus on just the state itself, like the state of a loving relationship, a state of being desired, a state of, fulfillment. Take the step back, get a little wider with the lens. Because if we're fixated on time and how fast time is going by and they're not moving, that is only to our detriment anyways. So take a step back, just see the bigger picture and what we're doing this for and who we're doing this for. It's not for them. It's for us. I'm not saying it's not hard. I'm not saying it's easy. It's for me, it was certainly not easy at times. But you will get through this. Sometimes we just need to take our perspective and change it so we're not just obsessing, if you know what I mean. But watch the video about patience. Nikki, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Nikki asks, can anything be manifested? What are the limits? Yeah, there are there's limits to the degree in which we put limits on ourselves, but is there limits on what is possible? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Can we revise an event? Can we revise that an event never happened? And if so, how do we do that? Just pretend it never happened when we think about it? I mean, so yes, we can revise an event as if it never happened. Absolutely. And we should, if it's an event that is not ideal. If it's something we don't want or like, yes, we can and should revise it. And how to go about doing that, you want to just, whatever the event was, in this case, I don't know what your specifically might be, but go back to that, event, or at least before that event, and imagine a different outcome happened instead. So we're kind of rewinding back the clock to before this event happened and imagining instead something else happening and going in our favor this time. So if somebody delivered you bad news by a text message, I would imagine I receive a message that is wonderful news. So it can be anything. And this is where we get to get creative. because I don't know, what specifically happened in that event that you speak of. But yes, we can revise as if it never happened. We should, if it's not an ideal event. And how do we do it? Create a new event, create a new memory instead. Can I specifically manifest a happy bridge / fast movement, which is SP, with my SP and me together? Or do I assume I have to do more living in the end in order to get this? So can I specifically manifest a happy bridge / fast movement to me and SP, or do I have to assume that I have to do more living in the end in order to get this? To the first part, can we specifically manifest a happy bridge and fast movements? Yes, absolutely we can. We want to start taking on the more general assumption that would imply that, things always work out for me. Something of that sort. Because that, again, implies that whatever does come your way, it does come away. Or, lovely things unfold for me. Lovely things are always unfolding for me. So, we want to start with the premise of this is a beautiful thing that happens, or I'm always receiving blessings and they always come to me quickly. Whether or not that's going to resonate, play around with that idea until you find something that does. But do I assume I have to do more living in the end in order to get this? We do not want to take that approach to this. We do not want to assume that I have to do more in order to get this. No. This is the art of becoming. This is the art of becoming that version of you who is. So for you and SP, you're already together. This is a happy, loving relationship. What does that look like? What does that feel like? Describe it. Get detailed about it. What do you do for hobbies? What are you doing on your, 10th wedding anniversary? But start really creating this, creating these aspects and get descriptive with these aspects. Describe the state and live there in imagination. Like, really get yourself playing with these in imagination. And do it because it feels good to do it. Because it's enjoyable. And we experience those subconscious impressions that come through us through feeling. But if we approach this with the mindset of, I need to do more living in the end in order to get this, that implies that you have to work really hard to get this, which we do not want to do. So just a note, be mindful of how we're looking at this. Be mindful of how we're approaching manifestation in general. Because what we're really good at doing as human beings, we are really good at overcomplicating things and making things very, very hard for ourselves. So just a thought. But can you specifically manifest a happy bridge and faster movement? Absolutely. Play around with these ideas. Everything comes to me naturally. Everything comes to me quickly. I am loved. I am beautiful. I always receive beautiful things as a result. What made it click when you went from manifesting stupid stuff you didn't care about to manifesting more meaningful things? What made it click when you went from manifesting stupid, small stuff that we didn't care about to more meaningful things? So, well, I guess what made it click was how I was reacting. And I was observing how I was reacting and responding with these two ways of going about it. For example, with the small, stupid stuff, the insignificant things that, I was doing to test the law, just proving it to myself that this is a thing that is real, I didn't care. I didn't care. Most of the time, I completely like put it out of my mind, went back to living my life, and then it would show up. Easy peasy, right? But when I started to apply this to the things that were important to me, that were significant to me, I couldn't just then not care. It was a whole new approach. But the truth is, manifestation works the same regardless of if it's something small and insignificant or something that is very dear to you. And it's that attachment to all of the old crap that does it for us every time. So it was what clicked for me was how I was acting and how I was reacting for both of these things. Like for the insignificant things, it was one way, and I was showing up completely differently with the significant things, but expecting the same result. Yeah, that was kind of my light bulb. I hope that made sense. I noted how I was showing up and where I was, you know, where I was sort of messing things up for me when it came to the bigger things, what I was doing that was hindering things from coming to pass. All right. I got time for maybe one or two more, you guys. Really good questions today, by the way. All of you are super rad. Oh, I'd like to just tell you thank you very much for being a shining light to us. Michael, you are so sweet. Thank you. Thank you. And you're welcome. Yes. So if you have applied for group coaching and have not received any, I just started getting back to emails and responding this last weekend. If you have not, if you have applied for the group coaching and have not received an email yet, you will get an email this week. This week is all about onboarding. So if you haven't yet, hang tight. I will get to you. When you reach the wish fulfilled, do you have to replicate that in your 3D or just go to it in your mind to make it reality? Example, I went to a specific store to win the jackpot. So if I'm understanding the question, when we reach that wish fulfilled, do we have to replicate it exactly in the 3D? Or just go to it in your mind to make it a reality? I'm a little confused about the question. So basically, what do we do if we reach the wish fulfilled? When we reach the wish fulfilled, what do we do once we know that that seed is planted, so to speak, and it's done? Nothing. We don't need to do anything consciously. We don't do anything once that seed is planted. Once impressed, you will be led. Anything that needs to happen is going to happen. Once impressed, we do not need to lift a damn finger. I'm serious. Not consciously. Anything that needs to take place, whatever has to be moved or changed, will already come to pass. That will come naturally. That is not our job. That is not the job of our conscious mind. So once you've imagined and that seed is impressed, once you feel that, and you'll know it's impressed because you'll feel that it's done. That feeling of, this is a done deal. I got it. It's in the bag. That moment, it's done. Do nothing. it might help to like think of it like literally like a seed. Okay, I want you guys to picture it because this concept is very difficult for us to grasp as humans because we really like taking conscious action and doing things. And I have people tell me all the time, I don't feel like I'm doing enough. I don't feel like I'm, doing enough sats. I don't feel like I'm doing enough affirmations. And I get hard on myself. So I want you to picture it like this. Think of an actual seed, like that you would put in the ground. Think of your seed as your desire. That's your desire. And the soil is the subconscious mind. Literally, once you plant that seed, all you need to do is let it grow. That seed already comes with all of the instructions on how to become a flower. Like, we don't need to do anything to make it a flower. And this is the same thing that comes with your desires. Your desire is a gift that has already got the power and the plan for its self-expression. It's already got all of the details figured out, exactly what's going to happen and when. Like, it's got all those bases covered. Once that desire is impressed, it's literally, that's what we mean when we say it's done, guys. Like, it knows what to do. Let it do its job. That's not the job of the ego. That's not the job of the conscious mind. Leave it alone. Actually, I don't see where the extra context was. I'm so sorry. Do you see the kitty? You see the little kitty. Little kitten's right over here in the corner. You are so welcome. Sorry, I lost my spot, you guys. Hang on. Okay. Missy, I just wanted to share how I fooled myself thinking I was living in the end. I felt the wholeness of the now, nothing to fix, all is well. I am officially so unbothered. Thank you. I love it. Oh, that's so good. Okay, last question, guys. I'm looking at the time. How do you ignore the 3D when you're revising? I want to revise that I never stopped talking to my SP, but can't believe that it never happened when the 3D shows me the opposite thing. That's a really good question. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. So, how do we deal with the 3D when we're revising? For example, you and SP broke up. You want to revise it so that you'd never stop talking, but then the 3D is there to remind you that, oh, there's no talking. So it's, and this is where we practice like turning within. This is where practicing turning within in imagination, because yes, we're still experiencing this 3D world. We're still having this human experience and interacting with the 3D, but it's knowing and understanding that it's what we imagine that determines the 3D. So when it comes to seeing that you two aren't talking, but you're revising it to do the opposite, you know that this is all just that's the old state. This is all stuff from the old state. So I guess what I'm trying to say is take the 3D with a grain of salt. This is where we're going to have to begin to really suspend our disbelief. Now, because again, if you're trying to revise it so that there was never any, if you're trying to revise it so that you have always been talking this whole time, we need to suspend from the 3D. Like, we need to suspend the disbelief from the 3D, which of course is going to feel much easier said than done, right? But this is where we practice. Practice going in imagination. Practice living that revised scene over and over. And anytime that you look and you're noticing the absence of your SP and the fact that you're not talking, reject that notion. Like, this isn't the right state. Nope, not this one. Nope. And then go back into imagination. This is where we practice going within, because though we are having this 3D experience, this is all just the projection and the attachment that we have to it is making it very difficult to separate ourselves from what is real and what is not. So it is a practice going within, and just practice and practice. We have not been using our imagination like this our entire adult lives. We've been doing everything literally backwards. So, be gracious with yourself, be kind to yourself in this interim, but just keep practicing going within. And anytime that you notice that they're not there, you notice the SP's, absence, you notice the lack of talking and involvement, reject that state, go back into your revision. With practice, you're going to find it, A, it's going to get easier and easier to do so. B, it's going to become much more enjoyable to do so. And C, ultimately, you start seeing that reflection in the 3D. Hang in there. Hang in there. And that goes for all of you guys. I am so grateful that you joined me today. I do have to get going. I would stay here all day. And one of these days I might. But much, much, much love to all of you. Sincerely, great questions today. I hope I answered things clearly. I'm a little bit allergy-ness in my nose right now. So if I'm a little wobbly, that's why. But again, I want to thank you guys. Thank you for joining me in the kitten. I will be back again next week. If I did not get to you, my apologies. But I will be back next week. Much, much love to all of you. Take care. And in the meantime, happy manifesting, guys.